Welcome back to this Real America's Voice News Break. I'm Terrence Bates. We begin with an update on Hamas's plan to release more Israeli hostages on Saturday. The terror group says it's going to work to, quote, remove all hurdles in order to release 3 more hostages. The big picture is, if Hamas follows through, the ceasefire deal with Israel is expected to move forward. Hamas started a diplomatic game of chicken earlier this week when the group accused Israel of breaking the terms of the truce, claiming the IDF failed to allow tents and shelters into the war zone. Well, this morning, it appears that Hamas is blinking as President Trump encouraged an end to the ceasefire if the hostages aren't returned by noon on Saturday. President Trump's campaign promise to end the war between Russia and Ukraine appears to be materializing as well. A meeting is set for tomorrow in Munich, Germany, during which Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead a delegation to begin peace talks. The move comes on the heels of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth saying that NATO membership for Ukraine is off the table. Wednesday, President Trump spoke with both Presidents Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
When the war ends, one thing he was very strong about, if it ends, he wants it to end. And that's President Putin said that. He wants it to end. He doesn't want to end it and then go back to fighting 6 months later. We talked about the possibility, I mentioned it, of a ceasefire so we can stop the killing. And I think we'll probably end up at some point getting a ceasefire in the not too distant future.
And back here in the United States, the reconciliation budget process is underway and front and center, particularly when it comes to the Department of Government Efficiency. The House Subcommittee on DOGE kicked off its oversight work related to the Elon Musk effort on Wednesday. The focus of the inaugural hearing of that committee was on Medicaid spending, specifically $2.7 trillion in improper payments. Despite a partisan divide, the goal of the committee is to work hand in hand with President Trump to root out waste to fix broken payment systems and to investigate fraud schemes. The committee's chairwoman, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, tells me that she is already laying out an ambitious agenda.
In the next coming days, my committee, we will be issuing a report with our solutions, whether it's legislation, whether it's cuts, whether it's working with chairs of committees of jurisdiction to actually bring these solutions into action. These are important actions that can take place, for example, on the reconciliation budget.
The Congresswoman also says using technology could help save American taxpayers as much as $500 billion by stopping improper payments. The next committee hearing is already scheduled for next month. Well, federal workers who dragged their feet and didn't accept President Trump's buyout offer may be SOL. The window to take advantage of the so-called deferred resignation program closed at 7 p.m. Wednesday, just hours after a federal judge in Boston lifted the temporary pause on that program. Now, that's significant in light of President Trump's latest executive order allowing Elon Musk and DOGE to decrease the federal workforce. As for the buyout, unions representing more than 800,000 federal workers sued the Trump administration, calling the program an arbitrary, unlawful, short-fused ultimatum. U.S. District Judge George O'Toole Jr. ruled that the unions had no standing to bring the lawsuit and that his court lacked jurisdiction. That's a quick check of your headlines. The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world, and it just stepped up its enforcement for 2025. If you happen to owe back taxes or if you've got unfiled returns, don't wait for the IRS to come after you. Simply avoiding your tax troubles is probably one of the worst things you can do. Getting ahead of this is the smart move, but never, ever, ever contact the IRS alone. Instead, turn your problems over to the folks at Tax Network USA. Why, you ask? Well, because not all tax resolution companies are the same, and Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, which means they know which agents to deal with and which ones to avoid. Tax Network USA has proven strategies that are designed to settle your tax problems in your favor, and that's whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million. Their attorneys and negotiators have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of them for free. Stop the threatening letters, stop looking over your shoulder, and put your IRS troubles behind you once and for all. You can do all of that simply by calling 800-905-8000 or visiting tnusa.com/RAV. That's tnusa.com/RAV.
morning. Welcome aboard the Truth Train as we kick off another brand new program here. It's the Steve Gruber Show coming to you live from Studio G here. I'm fighting for you for the foxhole of freedom every single day. We tell you the truth when others won't. We'll give you better analysis than anyone else. I promise you that. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, to all you crypto fans, great news. The president is gearing up on a promise. He seems like XRP, SOL, and ADA. I don't even know what those are. Number two, the strange tale of the death of Gene Hackman. It's still being sorted out. Was it natural? Was it homicide? Was it an accident? So strange. Number three, the big story that everybody is talking about. Europe throwing its support behind an endless war between Russia and Ukraine after holding an emergency summit with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy over the weekend. The EU chest thumping and show of solidarity came after the debacle in the Oval Office on Friday, when sparks flew between President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Zelenskyy. It was the spat heard round the world, and it got the arrogant little dictator tossed out of the White House altogether without any assurance of any ongoing support from the United States of any kind. Good. It seems the Europeans are good with a hot war with Russia. They claim they'll put boots on the ground and planes in the air. Well, good luck with that. After all, the EU has counted on the United States to foot the bill for NATO for 80 years and the ongoing war in Ukraine for the last 10, while neglecting their obligations to defending the continent and themselves. Frankly, they've neglected their own militaries for decades. You know why? Because we pick up the bill. That's why. Because, the United States will cover it. They'll send us military equipment. They'll pay for everything. It's been over 3 years now since Russia invaded Ukraine. There's no end in sight. None. Except for the ceasefire Donald Trump and his administration are pushing for. The one rejected again by Zelenskyy on Friday. And you know what they say? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting some different result. It is insane to continue on the multi-billion-dollar path we've been on and expect Putin to just wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to reverse course. And so far, not only has it burned up billions of dollars, at least 1.5 million people have been killed along the way, too, according to most estimates. 1.5 million people killed. This war had a ceasefire on the table April 2022. You know who rejected it? Zelenskyy and the Biden administration. So Friday was supposed to be the turning of a new page. Friday's deal was the third proposal the U.S. has made in negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine shot down the first two. The Biden administration may have helped kill those deals as well, as I just mentioned. The latest proposal would have placed more American business in Ukraine. Keep in mind, Putin's actions continue to indicate he doesn't want to mess with the United States when Trump is at the helm. Zelenskyy says he wants more security guarantees. This would have been the best guarantee he could have gotten, despite the fact that Europe really should be the ones responsible for Ukraine's security, not us, on the other side of the globe. The EU should also foot the bill that they keep sending to us. I mean, 500 million Europeans are demanding that 300 million Americans pay for a war to defend them against 140 million Russians. Let that sink in for a minute. 500 million Europeans, 300 million Americans, 140 million Russians. And it's our responsibility? Okay. So Zelenskyy insists on flying to D.C. after he tells our administration he's ready to sign the deal. Then he gets nasty in the Oval Office and airs out his differences in front of the American media, intentionally, by the way. The meltdown began with J.D. Vance's comments on things that are going our way instead of things that Joe Biden tried and failed. Listen to this.
The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
That sounds pretty reasonable, doesn't it? But it ruffled Zelensky's feathers. It almost seemed that this was what he wanted, like he laid in wait. So he pounced and things went downhill quickly from there. Here's Zelenskyy's response.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to...
Count one.
I have actually actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President.
Yeah. Hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers are dying every day as this conflict continues. Hundreds every single day. That right there doesn't seem to be a leader interested in peace. 250 died on that day alone, Friday. More Saturday, more Sunday, and already today. Dying every day. Zelenskyy comes to the table, a table that didn't exist under Biden's leadership, and then proceeds to spit in the face of diplomacy? Unbelievable. Then he seems to issue some kind of a vague threat about America's future. Get a load of this.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God
Yeah, sitting there with his arms crossed lecturing us. What an arrogant jackass. And here's where Trump stepped in and shut it all down. Here's a master class in authority. Listen in.
will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country.
That's what I voted for. Every second of that lecture. That's what I support. I know every reporter in that room was holding their breath. I was not. I was on board with Donald Trump. In fact, the Ukrainian ambassador was holding her head in her hands this whole time. Zelenskyy had one job to do, secure the minerals deal, secure support from the United States. She knew it. And she knew it was getting less likely every second that passed. As Zelenskyy continued to disrespect the United States of America on American soil, J.D. Vance took him to the woodshed once more. Here it is.
Should have.
Have you said thank you once this entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
So what does he do? Does he say thank you? No, he insults the vice president in his own White House. Trump doesn't stand for it, though. Again, watch this.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying
stop
strong
right there.
From the very beginning of the war.
We're going to take a break. We're going to pick it up right there with Donald Trump giving the lecture to Zelenskyy that he so sorely deserved. And I see all these people jumping to Zelenskyy's defense. So Trump was a bully. It's our house. And the only people jumping to Zelenskyy's defense are people that hated Donald Trump. They have Trump derangement syndrome anyway. I'll be right back. We're going to finish this off. General Michael Flynn calls Ukraine one giant money laundering operation. I don't think he's wrong about that, by the way. How much money went in there? Truckloads from the United States, the EU. They didn't put as much in as we did, but they put in plenty of money as well. Where's all that money go? To Zelensky's wardrobe? No, I don't think so. Okay, so we're going to pick it back up. Trump doesn't stand for getting mouthed around in the White House. Ever. Listen.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't been alone.
In this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and you men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
He's exactly right. It was embarrassing for Ukraine, but it was probably important for the American people to see that Zelensky is the definition of entitlement mentality and that he's not serious about negotiating for peace. This isn't new, but it's the most public display we've ever seen from a world leader. Clearly. You know, do you remember this headline? This was from 2022. Biden had just announced $1 billion more in aid on a phone call with Zelensky, and he barely got the words out of his mouth before Zelensky started asking for even more. Biden lost his temper. A lot of good that did. We continue to shell out more and more, billions more. Friday, we finally got to witness firsthand an administration with a plan. Trump stuck to his guns, just as he should. I think he summed up the problem pretty well right here. Listen.
The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing.
It didn't end there, by the way. Zelensky decided, even though he got thrown out of the Oval Office, summarily tossed out right after that, and out of the White House. It didn't end there. Zelensky had an interview on Fox News later that night. He didn't cancel. All the commentators all afternoon said, hey, maybe Zelensky can claw this deal back with a little humility. He can apologize on air, and maybe the deal can still be salvaged. But Zelensky picked up his shovel and dug deeper. His own grave, that is. Listen.
You think you owe an apology to President Trump?
I'm just telling that I think that we have to be on the same side, and I hope that the president on our side together with us, and that is very important to stop Putin.
So I'm not hearing from you, Mr. President, a thought that you owe the president an apology.
No, I respect President and I respect American people, and if I think that we have to be very open and very honest, and I'm not sure that we did something bad.
No apology, no humility. His performance so bad he even lost the support of Lindsey Graham. Think about that, one of the biggest pro-Ukrainian fanboys on Capitol Hill. Listen to this.
Met with Zelenskyy this morning. I urged him to stay on message, be grateful, be thankful. We'll talk about details of security guarantees later. Keep it upbeat, keep it positive. It was absolute, utter disaster. The question for me is he redeemable in the eyes of Americans? Most Americans witnessing what they saw today would not want Zelenskyy to be their business partner, including me, and I've been to Ukraine 9 times since the war started. I met with him this morning. President Trump I talked to last night, he was upbeat about the deal. I've never been more proud of President Trump for showing the American people in the world you don't trifle with this man.
Yeah, I think Senator Graham tends to just set his sails whichever way the wind blows, of course, but hey, even a broken clock is right a couple of times a day. However, there was one group of globalist warmongers that didn't disappoint. They stuck to their lost narrative that somehow Ukraine and its interests are more important than yours, or mine, or America's. The warmongering Democrats never seem to get on the right side of an issue. These politicians are living in luxury and your tax dollars, siding with Ukraine over the United States. Listen to these idiots.
Thanks for having me on a really awful day for our nation. Frankly, it's an awful day for Ukraine and our nation. The one nation that really is celebrating right now is Vladimir Putin in Russia.
I don't think people voted to make the United States a subsidiary diplomatic entity to Vladimir Putin, which is the way that Trump is operating here.
Think about it. All of our enemies throughout all of our history have been dictatorships. Our most enduring allies, our strongest allies, have always been democracies. And today, our president wants to switch sides in the struggle between autocrats and Democrats. He doesn't want to be the leader of the free world. He wants to join the autocratic club. And I just think it's sad on a kind of ethical and moral level.
Yeah. Let's go over this real slowly. Ukraine is not our ally. They never have been. Zelenskyy doesn't seem to be honoring the most basic of democratic principles. Free elections. He canceled his, of course. But we're supposed to just throw our blind support behind Ukraine in the name of democracy, as hundreds more young Ukrainian men die again today. If these politicians are so concerned about Ukraine, maybe they should send some of their own stuff to Zelenskyy, like their own kids to the front lines, maybe themselves to the front lines. They so believe in all of this. The media and Democrats are dealing in fantasy. Donald Trump is dealing in reality. I couldn't help but laugh at this exchange during that same meeting. Watch this.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia breaks peace talks? What do you do then? I understand that it's a heated conversation right now.
What are you saying?
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now?
Yeah, what if a bomb drops in your head right now? Look, Donald Trump's playing the long game. He's playing to win. He's playing to save Ukraine while EU plays games, and so does Zelenskyy. We're not playing games. You want a peace deal? Come get it. You want to be mouthy and disrespectful? Go away. End of discussion. I'll be right back. You know, before I close the file on this one for the day, I want to leave you with one more thing, right? No more what ifs, no more anything. I want you to leave with this. Our American be a guy who stood up for us. I voted for Donald Trump to be a guy that stood up for America first, not for America dumping billions of dollars into Ukraine. Yeah, I voted for Donald Trump to do exactly what I saw there. I appreciate you being here, and it takes great partners every day to make it possible. Partners like Hillsdale. And you guys ask me, hey, Steve, how can I do things that make me better educated? Hey, you guys say some flattering things about me, that I know a lot about what's happening and I'm well educated. Well, I read a lot and I spend my time well. You should do the same thing. Our time, very precious. Every day we have a choice, wasted on mindless entertainment, or drivel it away, or we can do something cool. Like watch Hillsdale College courses on the Constitution, freedom, C.S. Lewis, how we got here, religion in America. 40 free online courses, 40, including the newest on totalitarian novels. In just 8 lectures, the Hillsdale College President Larry Arnn will go through 1984, Brave New World, Darkness at Noon, and That Hideous Strength. Look, these are novels that show what happens when tyranny takes over, when idiots take over, like the folks that want a war in Ukraine over all else. A war in Ukraine over supporting Donald Trump, yeah. Gruber for Hillsdale.com. Check it out. There's no cost. You can learn a ton. You're going to like it, and you're going to be able to share this with other folks, your kids, your grandkids, the people down the street. Gruber for Hillsdale.com. There's a good use of your time. I'll be right back. going to peel back a couple of layers of the onion today with my next guest, Mike McCormick. He's a former stenographer. He worked in three administrations, Bush, George W., Obama, and the first year of Trump from 2002 to 2018. He was taking notes, if you will, as a stenographer. Mike McCormick, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Steve. It's good to be on with you.
Good to have you here. So you wrote an almost insurmountable evil, how Obama's deep state defiled the Catholic Church and executed the Wuhan pandemic and other things. So you were in the room, literally, taking notes on a variety of things. But I want to focus on Joe Biden for a moment, because just before we came on, you said the corruption was crystal clear, even when he was vice president, because you were not there when he was president, but you were around him as vice president. Did you do stenography for the vice president, Joe Biden, at the time?
Yes, I worked with Joe Biden specifically from 2011 to 2017. He left in January.
So would you say you were the principal stenographer then for him?
Yes, I listened to almost everything he said. And back then, he was pretty physically active and very talkative. Not what he was in 2020 when he was running for president from his basement.
Well, let me ask you about that real quick. 2011 to 2017, did you see a decline in Joe Biden mentally and physically during that stretch of time?
No, not at all. At that time, I started seeing a decline in like 2018, 2019. And it was really noticeable by 2020. By the time he was on the campaign trail in 2020, he was declined. I was actually on Fox News in September of 2020 with Laura Ingraham, and I said, look, he's a shell of his former self.
What do you think happened?
Well, they covered it up.
No, what do you think happened? What was the decline? What triggered that? What do you think happened? He
was just an older guy who got really feeble really fast. He had one doctor from the same time he was vice president all the way through his presidency, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, and that guy helped him cover this up with his handlers. So, you know, this is a pretty serious thing they did with the presidency. And part of that goes into the book I wrote, The Insurmountable Evil. There was a pandemic set up by Biden and his handlers and his operatives starting in 2014. And it went all the way through 2020 campaign. And then we wound up with the presidency of Joe Biden. It's an absolute tragedy.
So Joe Biden was there, and he opted not to run for president in 2016. Why did he not go? I mean, you were there. What were the decisions then?
Beau Biden died in 2015. He couldn't handle the fundraising on top of his grief.
So that just shot it down. All right, so let's talk about the corruption. You told me in the break just before you came on, corruption. Tell me about the things you heard, not just about the pandemic and COVID and all of that. What about the money coming in? What about selling the the Biden name during the Obama years? What about Hunter Biden? Tell us what you know.
Well, I did get a copy of the Hunter Biden laptop in 2021 from the Marco Polo Group. And so I was able to look at, because I traveled with Joe, and when I traveled overseas with him. So I went to the Vatican with him in 2016. I went to Russia with him in 2011. Went to Ukraine with him 3 times. I was able to look into that laptop at the email traffic that Hunter and his partners were doing in April 2014, just before we went to Ukraine for the first time with Joe Biden. And that's where the criminality was. And I wrote about that in that book, The Case to Impeach and Imprison Joe Biden, which was released last year. And I talked to congressional investigators about it. You know, I saw on Air Force 2 in 2014, going into Ukraine in April, I saw Jake Sullivan commit a crime, and I told the FBI about it. They didn't act on it. I told congressional investigators about it.
What crime?
They didn't act on it. He came back and spread malfeasance. It's a conspiracy. He was part of the Biden crime family conspiracy. Hunter Biden was secretly on the board of Ukraine while Joe Biden was taking a flight into Ukraine. And Jake Sullivan came to the back of the plane, and that press asked him, what's Joe Biden bringing for energy assistance? And Jake Sullivan told him 4 things. 2 of them directly benefited Burisma. One of them ran through USAID at the time. The Biden crime family used USAID as their crime family payout.
So how much money from USAID went to the Bidens? This is an important question because that's top of the fold right now.
In the Burisma, it's unknown. they kind of covered it up. The embassy in Ukraine was covering for that. $200 million went from USAID that was in November of 2014 to support something called Predict 2, which was virus surveillance done in China and around the world by a company called Metabiota. Metabiota was a company Hunter Biden had invested in December of 2013, right after he got off the plane with his dad in China. So Metabiota was then working in China. So there was a lot of connection between the Bidens, Burisma kickbacks, Metabiota kickbacks, USAID over the course of 2013 through 2016 when they got out of office.
Yeah, so it was happening, and you were there. You're in the room. So let me ask you this, Mike. As a stenographer, sometimes they must have turned to you and say, "Hey, stop! Don't take this down." That had to have happened, right?
No,
really?
It didn't happen because I was only there with the press, so they could never do that in front of the press. I was a press office stenographer. So all this discussion they had about the dark dealings, they did in private in the front of the plane. I'd be in the back of the plane with the press. They'd walk back with the sanitized version. And so evil can happen right in front of you and you don't understand it. The level of corruption can be right in front of you and you don't understand it. It wasn't until the Hunter Biden laptop came out that we really understand what was going on behind the scenes.
So how often were you behind the scenes with them?
Well, never actually. I was always, the press was always present. I would do background briefings with the White House through the years with the press present, but I didn't have a top secret clearance. I didn't have a classified clearance, so I didn't have to surrender my knowledge to the classified. Say no, I have to get classified clearance to write a book. I was able to write these books based on what I saw and heard, but I've been able to connect the dots from the 40,000-foot view that I've had over those years.
Right. So what do you think? Did Joe Biden commit crimes? Did Hunter Biden commit crimes? Did the First Lady? Did the other? I mean, when he passed around the pardons to the entire family, I mean, people got pardons that none of us had ever heard of in the Biden family. I mean, were they all? Was it really a criminal operation? Sure, seems
yes,
like it.
Absolutely. And I passed a crime tip on to the FBI 2 years ago, 2023 February. They never acted on it. So I'm going to pass another one on to them. We've got a different FBI director now.
Yeah, I noticed
that. I'm going to go to the U.S. Attorney in D.C. We'll see what he does with information. I witnessed Joe Biden and Jake Sullivan commit a crime on Air Force 2 in 2014, and the conspiracy lasted through the Biden presidency.
Which means there'd be no statute of limitations. That's what the takeaway is. Mike McCormick, stenographer, with 3 presidents, George W., Obama, first year of Trump's administration, and now trying to tell the truth about what he saw on Air Force 2 and elsewhere. Mike, really appreciate you being here. Good stuff. Tell the folks the name of the book again.
Thanks, Steve. The name of the book is An Almost Insurmountable Evil, How Barack Obama's Deep State Defiled the Catholic Church and executed the Wuhan pandemic. It's on Amazon.
Really appreciate it. Mike, thank you for being here. Well, how you feeling about the economy? A lot of folks pretty nervous about it right now, to say the least. A lot of fear out there, concerns. Interesting that those on the left told us how great the economy was up until the election. Now suddenly the economy's not very good. Weird. Terry Sawchuk, the founder of Sawchuk Well, stepping into the gap today to tell us what's up. Terry, good morning.
Morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm not fearful. I'm brave and fearless. Yeah. All right. So, what's going on with fear? Apparently, we found the bottom last Friday. The market's at what? 43.8. Not too bad overall, but it's it's a little shaky, right?
Yeah. I mean, the market's definitely been kind of the victim of a lot of the headline risk. Trump tariffs, the Zelenskyy stuff. I mean, all kinds of things are coming out. So I think it's going to get, we're going to see volatility continue, but I think the market's probably going to be okay, relatively speaking, through maybe the midsummer, end of spring or early summer. It looked like to me the market got overdone. And some of the high beta stocks like Tesla and NVIDIA for sure have gotten radically oversold, even though the market was only down 3 or 4%. Some of those names were down 25 or 30%, which is what brought the whole market down in the first place.
Where do you see the market bouncing back? I see that Trump's talking about a few different things here. He likes XRP. He likes some crypto, wants to have some backup in crypto. A lot of people talk about Fort Knox. A lot of different conversations going on. What about this crypto thing?
Well, I mean, he announced this, crypto strategic reserve, which is 75% Bitcoin and 25% assorted other cryptocurrencies like XRP, Solana, and Ethereum. In the end, I'm not sure what that's all going to look like. I feel like that's a bit of a diversion. But he had to keep his promise to the people that, really helped get him elected. And he did exactly that. I don't know if it's going to be that meaningful long term, frankly.
All right. So what about some of these other issues? You've got tariffs on the front page, Doge saving money on the front page. Of course, this big blow up in the Oval Office on Friday with Ukraine that we've been talking about. You tell me, what's happening with all the headlines? Does it make people nervous? Does it mess with the markets? What?
Well, it's obvious that, the regime is still trying to undermine the Trump administration, right? I mean, when you think about it, just from a very basic standpoint, why would anybody be upset with what Doge is trying to do? If you're trying to
predictable, but they like to be predictable. They don't like uncertainty. Liquidity may start to dry up in the second half as the Treasury spends down the general account as we fight this debt ceiling. So what you're suggesting with that is that risk management may be more critical today than it has been in a while. What do you say?
Yeah, it hasn't mattered in the last few years, right? You just buy the dip, ride it back up, and everything's fine. And I think we're getting to the point now where valuations are going to matter to some degree. And liquidity is a big deal because we've got, something close to $10 trillion that has to be refinanced at the government level over the next 8 months. And so for the next few months, it's fine because there's no debt ceiling. It hasn't been pushed out yet. So as a result, they're not really taking on any new debt, and they're using the Treasury general account to spend and pay their bills. That's going to provide plenty of liquidity. But as we get into the second half of this year, there's a lot of government debt that has to be refinanced, and that's why it's really, really important for the 10-year Treasury to keep coming down. This is, I think it was 19 straight weeks now that the 10-year Treasury has dropped. I might not have that exactly right, but the point is that the 10-year Treasury went from something like 4.8 to now it's around 4.23. That's the key. If we can get the interest rate complex down, especially at the 10-year mark and longer, that's going to make it a lot easier for the U.S. to refinance some of this debt, and the cost of business is going to go down a little bit for the U.S.
Yeah, let me ask you something else. It's not really your wheelhouse exactly, but I mean, one thing I keep looking at, the price of gold keeps setting record highs. Keeps going up and up and up. Silver's above 30. Pretty remarkable where the price of gold is. It's at almost $2,900 an ounce.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that if the U.S. doesn't get their proverbial you-know-what together, that gold's going to keep going up, right? Because we have to show that we're fiscally responsible and that we're paying attention to the debt and the deficit. And I think the good news is that, you know, over the next year or two, if Doge does exactly what we've seen it do so far and it continues to have success, then I think the U.S. dollar will probably strengthen and gold will come back down. I mean, basically, gold's a hedge right now. And there's also an arbitrage play because, you know, there's some thinking that maybe if the U.S. is bringing all this gold back, that they could reset the price of gold and that could change things a little bit. So I'm not sure, you know, how that's all going to play out. I'm not uber bullish on gold past this year.
Right.
I just fundamentally because I have faith that Doge is going to get it done. I might be wrong.
We'll find out. Tell them where they can find you, Terry.
Yeah, just go to sawchuckwealth.com. You know, it's the same place
Pretty
it always
easy.
is.
Yeah.
We're happy to help any way we can.
Sawchuckwealth.com. Terry Sawchuck. All right, so uncertainty, but then again, we'll see what happens. I'm not going to panic today. It's Monday. Terry, thank you.
It sounds pretty lukewarm, Steve. We're on the next segment. We're going to have to do better than this.
All right, let's bring it up a little. All right, thank you. Terry Sawchuck, everybody. I'll be right back. All right, I just saw Donald Trump came out with a message, says he refuses to bend the knee. This might have been from last night, but I just caught it on Truth Social. He refuses to bend the knee to endless wars in Ukraine. I agree with that completely, by the way. We don't want endless wars in Ukraine. We don't want, you see, here's the problem. When countries like Estonia that were welcomed into NATO go start posturing and rattling the saber to provoke Russia, if Russia attacks Estonia, we're all in. That's Article 5. Therein lies the problem. Right there, there's part of the problem. By the way, I haven't got my 25 followers today. I need new followers on X, Facebook, Instagram. Need 25 new followers. This movement is going places, all right? Become a subscriber on X. You'll get all sorts of special content. That's right, special content. 2-3 times a week, you get more stuff than everybody else. More conversation, more content, more analysis. Yes, very much so. Greatly appreciate you being here, of course, as always. Your health is the most valuable asset. At the Wellness Company, we're here to help you protect it from our daily essential supplements to specialized immune boost formulas. The doctor-developed products are designed to help you feel your best naturally. It's not just about supplements. As a member, you'll have access 24/7 virtual care, exclusive discounts, and personalized wellness plans tailored to your needs. Not mine, yours. TWC.health/Gruber. Go there today. Explore the wide range of wellness solutions. TWC.health/Gruber. Use the promo code Gruber. You'll save 10% at the Wellness Company. Oh, and don't forget 1775 coffee. Man, I've got to tell you about this. 1775 coffee. Just started trying this coffee out. Oh, it's the best. You're going to love this. 1775coffee.com. You can get it yourself. It's what we're drinking now here at the Steve Gruber Show. You're going to like it. I'm going to tell you all about it this week. Don't you worry. 1775 coffee. Look, if not for coffee, I'd be dead, I think. Anyhow, we got a lot more in the next hour. Don't miss any of it. Dr. Steve Turley is coming up. We're going to talk more about Donald Trump's comments about bending the knee to Ukraine. It's all coming up in the next hour here on the Steve Gruber Show.